I'm learning Claude Code from scratch, live, right now. If you choose the right tools and you learn how to communicate with them properly, you can move ridiculously fast, even as a total beginner. Genuinely none. 10 days ago, I started a series called Vibe Coding until I hit 100K. The plan is simple. I'm going to go through the official Anthropic course live, pause constantly, explain what I'm learning in plain English, and then we'll apply it immediately. Prompting, workflow, best practices. Again, I'm a complete beginner. I know nothing. So let's go. You can see here, they've got like all the different options. Estimated time, 15 minutes. This video introduces Claude as more than a chatbot. It's an AI assistant designed to be your thinking partner.
You had an idea. What was it? Right. Claude remembered it. Your idea was hungry. Hungry for answers, connections. Claude helped you look, reading alongside you. Turn this into what? A day. Spreadsheets, documents, the tedious parts handled. Your idea stopped being just words and slides.
About this course covers Claude Code, a command line AI assistant that uses language models to perform development tasks. You'll learn how Claude Code reads files, executes commands, and modifies code through its tool system, along with techniques for managing context, creating custom workflows, extending Claude Code with hooks, and integrating with external services. And so we're just going to go ahead and figure out what MCP means because, hey.
Hello and welcome. My name is Stephen Greider, and I'm a member of technical staff at Anthropic.
Perfect. Love it. Great. Next. So this is me. What code is written in the main.go file? Language model running outside of any coding exists.
Inside the...
So I actually want to add...
Second, Claude Code itself is extensible, so it's really easy to add in new tools to Claude Code. So remember, coding assistants use language models internally to complete different tasks. These language models, they need to know how to use tools to work on the vast majority of tasks that they are given. Tools are used to read files, write files, run commands, and essentially everything else that doesn't just involve generating some text.
Is that the first and last steps require the assistant to interact with the outside world, reading files, fetching documentation, running commands, or editing code. The tool use challenge. Here's where things get interesting. Language models by themselves can only process text and return text. They can't actually read files or run commands. If you ask a standalone language model to read a file, it will tell you it doesn't have that capability. So how does coding assistants solve this problem? They use a clever system called tool use. How tool use works. When you send a request to a coding assistant, it automatically adds instructions to your message that teach the language model how to request actions. Why Claude's tool use matters. Okay, this strength in tool use provides several key benefits for Claude Code. That was very interesting.
Here's my first task for Claude Code. I'm going to ask it to find and optimize performance issues in the chalk library. Package, well, it would probably be worth the effort. So I'm going to ask Claude to run the benchmarks, identify the worst performing cases, use some profiling tools to figure out why those cases are running so slowly, and then fix them. We'll then see that Claude is going to use a wide variety of different tools to intelligently tackle this problem. It'll form up a to-do list to track its progress, execute commands to run the benchmarks, write a file to better zoom in on one particular case, use a CPU profiler to understand why that case is running so slowly, and then implement some improvements. Here's another example of how well Claude can string together different tool calls to complete a rather complex task. I'm going to give it a data set inside the CSV file. All the data inside here contains information about different users of a video streaming platform. I'm going to ask it to just do a general analysis, maybe identify some causes of churn on the platform. And I want all this analysis to be done inside of a Jupyter notebook. So here's what that process looks like in action. I'm going to ask Claude to improve the styling of my app and make use of a browser to do so. It'll then open a browser on the right-hand side of the screen, navigate to my app, it'll take a screenshot to view the current styling, and then update the styling. We could even ask Claude to take another screenshot of the page when it was complete and iterate on the design a couple of times to really get a nice design that really pops. There's one last set of demonstrations that I'd like to give you. Remember what I mentioned a moment ago. Claude's ability to utilize tools so well is what will allow Claude Code to grow with you and your team in the future. Let me show you an example of that right away. Claude Code has a very close integration with GitHub. You can set up Claude Code to run inside of a GitHub action, where it will be executed automatically based upon certain events. Let me show you an example. Let me first set up a little scenario for you. Let's imagine that we are building out some infrastructure on AWS, and all of our infrastructure is defined inside of a set of Terraform files, which are committed and stored on GitHub. Because all of our infrastructure is defined inside of Terraform files, Claude Code has a really good idea of how information is flowing through our infrastructure. So now at this point in time, we are putting personally identifiable information into this bucket, which is accessible by a separate company. Now, Claude Code has an excellent idea of my infrastructure. So it was able, inside of an automated review, as we're seeing right here, to take a look at all the changes I made inside this pull request. It was able to figure out exactly how my infrastructure works, and it was able to identify that I'm exposing some PII to a partner. So it has listed out the data flow right here, the exact steps that occur, and goes into great detail on how this bucket is shared with an external partner.
That's how you know that you're a noob. Let's open chat. Actually, let's ask Claude. Just downloaded Claude Code through my Mac terminal. How to start first session and log in using account. All options. Hit enter and nothing happened. Opened new terminal and ran Claude. Nothing happened. Then run Claude. Let's see. So let's see. I want to finish this as well though, so let's enter Fusion. We have found 2 different ways to get Claude on our device, either through an IDE, close. Login successful, please enter to continue. Okay, it worked, sweet. Press enter to continue. Claude can make mistakes. You should always review Claude's responses, especially when running code. Due to prompt injection risks, only use it with code you trust. Use Claude Code's terminal setup. No, yep. Yes, use recommended settings. Yes, continue. Okay. Tips for getting started. Run /init to create a Claude.md file with instructions for Claude. Note you have launched Claude in your home directory for the best experience. Launch it. Launch it. Okay. It's just going to cut out there. Yeah, sweet. All right, cool. Well, we got it set up here. Smaller, manageable steps. Bad prompt. Help me with a presentation. Good prompt. I need help creating a 10-slide presentation for our quarterly sales meeting. The presentation should cover our Q2 sales performance, top selling products, and sales targets for Q3. Please provide an outline with key points for each slide. Why it's better? The good prompt provides specific details about the task, including the number of slides, the purpose of the presentation, and the key topics to be covered. It is the same UI generation app shown in a previous video. Note, you don't have to run this project. You can always follow along with the remainder of the course with your own code base if you wish. Setup. This project requires a small amount of setup. Ensure you have Node.js installed locally. Linked installation directions. All right. Okay, so now we've done that. Download the zip file called Fusion. Attach this lecture and extract it. I want to create a button that says submit. Now let's get rid of all this. So we've just done that. Now let's go next. UIGen is an AI-powered React component generator. At preview, users describe components in natural language and receive interactive, editable components in real time. The app uses a virtual file system. No disk writes with full persistence for authenticated users. Now, this is really useful information because when I'm currently using Replit and I hate it, so now when I make the shift, I know that when looking at the file for the first time, I need to do /init.
Enter to accept, or if you don't want to have to grant permission to every file write request, you can also press Shift-Tab, which allows Claude Code to freely write files in your project. I would encourage you to open up the Claude.md file that was generated and take a look at its contents. As I mentioned, the contents of this file are included in every request we make out to Claude. This file really has 2 different purposes. First, it helps Claude better understand your code base, so it can find all the code more quickly. And second, it serves as a location where you can give Claude some general guidance. Specify that I want to add this instruction to the project.
He said pound sign. Keyboard. There was a pound sign. Shift 3 +3 on a UK.
Then open the file up and do a search. I'll see that in fact yes, it did that file intelligently. If I then open the file up and do a search, I'll see that in fact yes, it did add in that new instruction. Now that we
Perfect. Use comments sparingly. Only let's add that there. Okay, sweet, cool. So this file is basically the rules that Claude follows when working on this project specifically.
Now be included inside a request object Claude. This is an excellent technique for pointing Claude in a specific.
Oh, you mentioned a few.
You can use the same syntax to also mention.
Let's see. I'll examine the auth dialog component to explain how the authentication system works. Read auth dialog. Read sign-in form. Oh, dude. Claude. This must be like an older version of Claude that uses because this Claude is just doing everything. Tool use error. File does not exist.
Let me show you an example of why that is really useful. For pointing Claude in a
File mentioned with at plus path to file. Scroll through the list. Select a file.
specific direction. You can use the same syntax to also mention files inside of Claude.md. Let me show you an example of why that is really useful. Inside of the Prisma folder of this project, there's a file called schema.prisma. This file contains a complete definition of all the different tables and types of records that exist inside a SQLite database that is used to store information inside this project. Because this information is so important and relevant to so many aspects of this project, I might decide to mention this file inside of my Claude.md file. Let me show you how I do that. First, I'll enter a pound to enter memory mode. I'll then mention this.
Database schema is defined in the Prisma file. Reference it anytime you need to understand the structure of data stored in the database. Okay. The database schema is defined in the @prisma/schema @prisma/schema.prisma file. Reference it anytime you need to understand the structure of data stored in the database. Reference it anytime you need to understand the structure of data within the database. Okay.
Structure of data inside a database. Once the update is complete, I'm going to take a look at the Claude.md.
I'll add this important note to the Claude.md file. Okay.
File and just verify that the note was added. When you mention a file like this, its contents are automatically included inside of your request. So if I ask what attributes the user has.
Okay, let's try it. What ATTIS does it say? What does the user have? Based on database schema, the user has the following attributes. Okay, sick. This is cool.
You need to answer without reading the schema file.
So far, so good. All right, cool. Now, when working with Claude on coding projects, context management is crucial. Yes, we learned this. .init, yep. Claude code. Okay, so adding custom instructions. You can customize how Claude behaves by adding instructions to your Claude.md file. Then referencing files in Claude.md. You can also mention files directly in your Claude.md file in the same at syntax. This is particularly useful for files that are relevant to many aspects of the project. Well, it looks like we just finished the Claude code course. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Now, this is episode 1 of learning Claude code with me. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Peace out. Bye.